Hey everybody, it's Jason with Parallel Reality coming back with you here today to do my second attempt at this particular article here. My program didn't record it the first time, so let's give it another shot. So this article is from May 25th from Fox News. This should be fairly concerning to anybody on the right side of the political spectrum, and the article is called University Program Linking Christians, Republicans to a Certain Group of Germans from World War II granted DHS funds under anti-terror initiative. So Biden admin funding controversial efforts to treat conservative groups as radical, Watchdog learns. So this is a very long article, so we'll see. I'll try to go through it pretty quick since I already did this one time. So says the Biden administration is doling out taxpayer money through an anti-terrorism grant initiative to a university program that has explicitly lumped the Republican Party, as well as Christian and conservative groups, into the same category as a certain group of Germans during World War II, according to documents shared exclusively with Fox News Digital. Because, as we all know, those things are obviously equal. That's sarcasm for those of you that can't seem to figure out that was. The Media Research Center, a conservative watchdog group who I do recommend checking out, has obtained documents through the Freedom of Information Act request showing a Department of Homeland Security program meant to fight terrorism as funding a group whose work has explicitly targeted the American political right. The MRC outlined its findings in a report, arguing what the group found warrants criminal prosecution. And this link right here, I would definitely recommend checking out. It is the full report that the MRC did. It is rather extensive, so definitely recommend it. The Fox article here is essentially a summary of it, and this is still a pretty long article, but definitely check that out. Article continues. It says that this terrorism task force is engaged in an active effort to demonize and eliminate Christian, conservative, and Republican organizations using federal taxpayer dollars, said Brent Bizzell, founder and president of the Media Research Center. That's your money, people. Says what we have uncovered calls for criminal prosecution. The American people need to know those who are abusing their positions in the federal government will be held accountable for their criminal behavior. And here's the chart, which is actually below as well, but this is actually a blown up version of it, and it has Alejandro Mayorkas and Joe Biden's pictures on here for some reason, but we'll go through this in a little more detail, and so will the article. So it says DHS's Targeted Violence and Terrorism Prevention Grant Program, the TVTP, provides funds to various public, private, and nonprofit institutions, such as universities and county governments, to establish or enhance capabilities to prevent targeted violence and terrorism. Grant applicants must be based in the U.S. and implement a U.S.-based program. It says the Biden administration has awarded 80 grants to the TVTP, totaling just under $40 million. The lowest grant was for $85,000. The highest was over 1.1 million. And the median was about $442,000. You guys just want to, if you want to just throw away money, I mean, I take donations, so, I'm open for that. This TVTP grant recipients are prohibited from engaging in viewpoint discrimination, according to DHS. Whoops, that didn't work out. So it started by the Obama administration, because of course it was, under a different name. The TVTP was broadened and revamped by the Biden administration with a new focus on violent extremism and white supremacy. Too bad they're coming from their own side, so it's kind of one of those, it's coming, the call is coming from inside the house, and they're just looking outside the house for all these problems. Anyway, it says DHS named one of its TVTP goals as media literacy and online critical thinking initiatives, which many grantees listed as the mission of their projects. One such grantee was the University of Dayton for its Prevents OH program, which it stands for Ohio, but Prevents O is what it looks like. So I'll just call it Prevents Ohio going forward. It says which DHS awarded $352,109 to draw on the expertise of the University of Dayton faculty to fight domestic extremism and hate movements. What makes them qualified for that? I don't know, and since I already went through this entire article one time, I can tell you it doesn't actually tell you. So here we go. It says the university's grant application submitted a DHS linked a footnote linked it. Oh, here, let me start that over. It says the university's grant application submitted to DHS linked in a footnote to a controversial Dayton conference where an academic researcher presented a chart titled "The Pyramid of Far-Right Radicalization." And here's the pyramid, and we're definitely going to go over it, but you can see in here, it does say at the bottom, this is mainstream conservatism, and it has Fox News, Heritage Foundation. Here's the Republican Party symbol. Then alt-light, Breitbart, which is not. Same with PragerU, is not. Cool, that's like centrist, so I don't even know why they'd even be anywhere near this pyramid. And the MAGA hat, they're not alt-anything, you morons. Then it says alt-right, which starts getting into, you can see there's a certain symbol right here, yeah. And other things I've never heard of. I've heard of the Daily Stormer just because they're anti-Semites. So yeah, they're bad. And then whatever these groups are up here, and I always thought it was funny that there's a group that has like the nuclear waste symbol up here. Like, what is that? So I don't know what that is. I just think it's funny. It's like, well, nuclear stuff is bad, so I guess these guys would be bad. Anyway, not cutting that cough out. It says among the organization and movements displayed on the pyramid were the Republican Party, Heritage Foundation, American Conservative Union, Fox News, Breitbart News, the National Rifle Association, PragerU, Tea Party Patriots, MAGA Movement, Pro-Police Blue Lives Matter Movement, and the Christian Broadcasting Network, none of which are in any way, shape, or form even remotely far-right or even related to them. It says the pyramid also included hate groups like The Base, never heard of them. They're a neo-Nazi paramilitary group, yep, F those guys, and the Daily Stormer and pro-Nazi publication, yep, F those guys too, seemingly comparing them to mainstream organizations such as the GOP. Yeah, they're not related at all. Congratulations on that. Anyway, we'll go on. It says that in 2021, the University of Dayton held a seminar called Extremism, Rhetoric, and Democratic Precarity, featuring several experts on extremism who compared mainstream conservatives to genocidal extremists. Yes, because those things are clearly the same. Okay, like I hate how this word genocide, or genocidal in this instant, is just becoming another one of their words that they're just dumbing down to the point where it doesn't mean anything anymore. Okay, that word it's a heavy word that should only be used when it actually happens, when it is those things. Okay, and when it's just regular conservatives, I can guarantee you'll find zero of those people want this sort of thing to happen. Okay, so yeah, not the same. So the university's grant application to DHS linked to a video of the conference describing it as indicative of the university's work to assess regional needs and capacities for violent extremism prevention and directing government evaluators to view it for more information. And there's some stuff about it. It says, one speaker at the conference, University of Cincinnati researcher Michael Lodenthal, presented the pyramid of far-right radicalization, portraying it as an accurate depiction of the modern far-right and extremism in America. Too bad he's 100% wrong about that. And by the way, this guy is extreme far left. Okay, he is actually that thing. Like, he's an open Antifa supporter, which would make you far left, and you're going to actually see that further down in the article. So I can't really say that you could trust his opinion on these sort of things. This is according to Lodenthal. The MRC is misinterpreting and misrepresenting the diagram as well as his role with it. Well, I can't really say you're misrepresenting the diagram because, we saw it. So he sent Fox News Digital a full copy of the image, which included text underneath the pyramid describing the bottom tier of the GOP, the NRA, and the Heritage Foundation as mainstream conservatism. But by virtue of them being on the same pyramid, you're linking the two things. Okay? Like, if they weren't on there and somebody put them on there, then you could say, yeah, it's being misinterpreted. But if you're putting them all on there and being like, all of this leads to this, it's like, yeah, you're obviously doing that. So try again, pal. And he says the chart is meant to show what is termed the right is not monolithic, and that some individuals travel to a path of radicalization, beginning with more mainstream sources, said Lodenthal. This point is not controversial, nor is it deterministic. It is not meant to imply that engaging with level 1 inherently leads to level 4. That would obviously be false. Okay, that's a statement of truth. I can live with that. It says, when the pyramid was presented at the seminar, the text at the bottom was not visible. However, Lodenthal's notes visible on the screen of the slideshow to the right of the image provided an abbreviated version of the text. So today we're talking about the modern far right, which is like barely 5 digits worth of people. It says, which, depending on who you ask, can include things as mundane as the Heritage Foundation. So he is linking them. He just did that right here. It says modern far right, depending on mundane things, Heritage Foundation. Yeah, you just linked them, dude. So your own statement up here is incorrect. No one's misinterpreting what you're saying. You're literally doing it right here. So he says, includes things as mundane as the Heritage Foundation all the way up to underground cells of militants. The on-screen text reads, says, I like the use of this 4-part taxonomy, although I disagree with some of the group's placements. Okay. I can't really comment on that. I'd probably take out most of what's in these bottom two from here entirely. And like I don't really know much about most of these groups, so I couldn't comment on them. But anything with any sort of Nazi symbol in it should probably be in the 4 part, not in the 3 part. Because how can these guys up here be worse than these guys in the 3 section? Anyway, says Lodenthal also noted that he did not create the pyramid, telling Fox News Digital that he believes it was authored around 2018. The upper left corner attributes the image to two scholars, Macaulay and Moslalenko, who have not been mentioned before, so why are their first names not here? Found it a helpful conceptual scaffolding and used it, he said. All right, so let's scroll down. It says the MRC report noted that at the same seminar, another speaker, Alexander Hinton, a member of the Rutgers University faculty who specializes in genocide, as one does, that's interesting, says, compared the Trump administration to the Khmer Rouge. Okay, we're going to stop right there and just say, you're a dumbass. Like, this should be the kind of thing where somebody sees this that works there and goes, you shouldn't have a job in academia ever again, because these two things are about as far apart on the political spectrum and nowhere near the same as humanly possible. There's absolutely no similarities here. Say, go watch the movie The Killing Fields. Okay, it's from, I think, 1984 with Sam Waterston. And it's about exactly what happened during this, and it shows some of the horrific stuff that went on. And if you're watching that movie and going, yeah, this totally seems like what the Trump administration was doing. If you really think that, I suggest going and getting some, like, intensely serious psychiatric assistance, because there's something very wrong with you. I'd probably suggest heavy inpatient, maybe electroshock therapy, and if we need to bring back lobotomies for that, I'd recommend it. Again, there's no way you can compare the two things. It's not even close. The paragraph finishes off with the Khmer Rouges of Pol Pot's regime in Cambodia killed an estimated 1.5 to 2 million people from 1975 to 1979. That was a quarter of Cambodia's population, by the way. Okay, if we're talking about that to the United States and scaling it up to 330 million or so people that live in this country, what is that, 83 or 4 million people? Yeah, that's just not a thing, and that would be utterly disgusting, and no one would stand for it. So clearly, Mr. Hinton, you are an idiot that nobody should ever listen to ever again about anything related to this. So, and he's an expert. He specializes in genocide. He clearly doesn't know what he's talking about. Okay. So a third speaker, Nicole Wittersheim, Deputy Director of Human Rights for Human Rights Watch, which is an extreme far left organization, and former senior policy advisor to the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum Center, compared Florida Governor Ron DeSantis proposing a volunteer civilian military force to assist the National Guard in emergencies such as hurricanes to the Nazis' Holocaust during World War II. Again, same thing I said about the Hinton guy above. This is a woman that nobody should ever listen to about anything ever again, and she should be removed from academia and put on a list where she never gets to speak in front of people about this stuff ever again. She clearly has no idea what she's talking about. Because those two things, again, this is not even comparing apples and oranges. This is like comparing apples and, like, your desk at home. Like there's just what? Like, how are you, what? You think they're the same? Are you, like, my honest to God question is, Nicole Woman, if she was to say it in front of me, I'd be like, are you stupid? Like, really, like, what the hell is wrong with you? Let's keep going here. It says a DHS official, Joseph, and I'm going to butcher this last name, Mastalix, a regional prevention coordinator at the Center for Prevention Programs and Partnerships, of which TVTP is a part, was another speaker and appeared virtually in his official capacity at the event to deliver a short presentation about the center's mission and resources. According to DHS, the University of Dayton was not a TVTP grantee at the time of the seminar and received a grant the following year, when the department was already aware of what was presented at the event. A DHS spokesperson told Fox News Digital that the award was unrelated to the seminar and rejected the notion that it supports any form of discrimination, which is clearly incorrect, because what are we doing about this entire thing that we're talking about right now? This would certainly be discrimination. So the seminar was not funded, organized, or hosted by the Department of Homeland Security, the spokesperson said. Similarly, the percentage chart was not developed, presented, or endorsed by the Department of Homeland Security and was not part of any successful grant application to the Department of Homeland Security. DHS does not profile, target, or discriminate against any individual for exercising their constitutional rights protected by the First Amendment. Except that they probably do. So let's see what else it says. It says the University of Dayton similarly described the seminar as being separate from the Prevents Ohio program. That the speakers at the programs referred to the Media Research Center's report are from the University of Dayton Human Rights Center's Social Practice of Human Rights Conference in the fall of 2021, which had no affiliation with and predates Prevents Ohio, the university told Fox News Digital in a statement. The University of Dayton Human Rights Center received its Prevent Ohio grant in the fall of 2022, and to date, its community awareness events and dialogues have focused on all forms of domestic terrorism, targeted violence, and extremism. Funny that it's focused on all of them, except it never mentions anything about the left, which is doing practically all of it, but okay. As we stated when awarded the grant, we look forward to partnering with Ohioans throughout the Miami Valley across all political and social affiliations and sectors of the community. Okay, nice canned language. The school did not note its inclusion of the seminar in its grant application. Extremism, Rhetoric, and Democratic Precarity wasn't the only controversial conference conducted by the University of Dayton. Indeed, a separate seminar titled White Nationalism Workshop, and they spelled Nationalism Workshop. Okay, good job there, copy editors. So Lodenthal also spoke about how anti-fascists could pressure financial services, retailers, service providers, and various platforms to kick people off, promoting the deplatforming of alleged fascists who he compared to the mainstream political right. If you knew anything about the background of fascism, it did not come from the right. It never was a part of the right. It was always a part of the left. There are right-wing leaders, authoritarians out there, thinking specifically of Francisco Franco in Spain and Pinochet in, was it Chile, I want to say, that were called fascist, but decried the term. So yeah, I would say it's a left-wing thing. So let's try that again. But again, they just use fascist because it just means bad people to them. But if you were to ask them what that actually is, either they're not going to be able to tell you, or they're just going to be dishonest about what it actually means and where it comes from. Let's keep going. He says, a lot of things we're doing are illegal. Oh, nice that he admits that. A lot of things involves breaking the law. Lodenthal also described hate speech as an act of war, which now you're discrediting yourself there, pal. Hate speech is not an act of war. Honestly, if someone says something you don't like and you're saying something violent needs to happen to you in return, you're the problem. It's not the person saying the bad thing. Sure, they might be saying a thing you don't like, and people can tell that person to shut up, but you don't get to use violence on them for it. I'm sorry, that's just not acceptable. So he calls it the strategic deployment of organizational energy and power, and called for shutting down forces deemed extremist. That's going to lead to a bad place, I'm telling you. Is to deny people that, to shut down their websites, to close their meetings, and to physically prevent them from assembling in public. This is the belief, he said, also displaying an infographic of how anti-fascists can infiltrate, surveil, and disrupt far-right forces. Well, they're already doing that, but they're not doing it to far-right forces, okay? Because the far-right, believe it or not, is too smart to let them in. Okay, because these people, remember, it's like what I said earlier, it's the far right legitimately in this country is maybe like 10,000 people, and that's stretching it. Okay, and they're probably a very small group. I shouldn't even say they were smart, but they're probably a very small group of people that are probably very tight-knit, so they're not really going to let in any outsiders. But the people who are these anti-fascists, who are really just fascists, I mean, you can take off the anti part, who they infiltrate are just regular groups. That's all they're doing, just regular Americans. And again, these people are so deranged that they actually think they're fighting Nazis. Let's keep going here. It says, Lodenthal additionally noted that in his younger years, he engaged in direct confrontation with alleged white supremacists. I would want to see proof of that, seemingly describing himself as a member of Antifa, and there's the extremism part. We organize largely through networks. Today, people would call Antifa, at the time it was known as anti-racist action, to follow white supremacists where they go, to outnumber them, and then to physically confront them and deny them the space to physically meet in public. He said, this is the idea of deplatforming. I worked in that realm for a long time. So he's an extremist, all right. There's Lodenthal, who added that at the time he was also a medical worker who provided abortion services, so he killed babies, all right. Has frequently retweeted Antifa accounts and appeared to defend left-wing violence on social media. So again, this is not a good dude. So at the same event, University of Dayton professor Paul Becker displayed images of anti-COVID lockdown and anti-vaccine mandate protesters, suggesting they were infiltrated by hate groups. These people are deranged. In no way, shape, or form, are these hate groups. What are you talking about? Or infiltrated by the hate groups? Like, geez, because someone doesn't want to be locked up? Like, understand what that is. People were against lockdowns because we're being told at the same time we couldn't leave our house that if you're going to protest for racial equality, something that we already have, you were totally allowed to do this. Never mind the disease that's out there that's doesn't care about who or what it infects, but somehow if you go out there and do, and protest, you're going to be fine. How does that work? Okay. And anti-vaccine mandate protesters. So people didn't want to be forced to take an untested substance. I don't have a problem with that. Anyway, in order to promote its work for the city of Dayton, Prevents Ohio sent the city an image named Anti-Rights Movements and Democratic Regression, featuring a caricature of a Second Amendment supporter above the words, "Why do we have a radicalized society?" Yes, it must be those Second Amendment supporters, of which none of them seem to be doing anything bad. They just support, your constitutional rights, but okay. So the MRC described its findings in a new letter sent to Representative Jim Jordan, who is this gentleman right here, Republican of Ohio, chairman of both the House Judiciary Committee and the newly established subcommittee on the weaponization of the federal government. The letter from Bazell called for an investigation and criminal prosecution while asking to meet with Jordan to discuss the DHS documents. The Media Research Center has uncovered disturbing documentation that proves that the government is colluding with left-wing activists, academics, and state and local officials in an active effort to target some of the most prestigious conservatives and prominent political, religious, and media groups in the country, linking them directly to Nazis and terrorists, the letter states. The American people need to know that those who are abusing their positions in the federal government will be held accountable for this criminal behavior. The first version of the TVTP was created by the Obama administration, which in 2011 unveiled a plan titled Empowering Local Partners to Prevent Violent Extremism in the United States, to give taxpayer-funded grants to local groups, including police departments, universities, and nonprofits, to prevent violent extremism. The first grants weren't rolled out until 2016 in the Countering Violent Extremism Grant Program. It took them 5 years to do that, okay? Not sure why. So the Trump administration halted the program for 3 years before DHS resurrected in 2019 through the newly launched Office of Targeted Violence and Terrorism Prevention, because that's all we need is more federal offices, okay? So DHS officials had reportedly circumvented the White House to seek congressional funds for the program. In August 2020, then presidential candidate Joe Biden vowed to end the Trump administration's Targeted Violence and Terrorism Prevention Program and replace it with his own. Once in office, Biden and his Secretary of Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas, replaced the Office for Targeted Violence and Terrorism Prevention with the new Center for Prevention Programs and Partnerships, which is CP3, of which TVTP is a part. Okay, so it's a new office on top of a new office. According to a DHS press release from the time, the creation of CP3 is among the latest actions DHS is taking under Secretary Mayorkas' leadership, or, well, if you know anything about what he's been doing, his leadership, and I use bunny ears around that, to comprehensively combat domestic violent extremism, including violent white supremacy, which, again, doesn't really exist. But okay. As the majority of TVTP grants, 52%, have gone to public institutions like universities and county governments, while 48% have gone to private organizations such as the University of Dayton and the LGBTQ advocacy group Out Boulder County. According to the MRC, DHS has resisted producing documents pursuant to its FOIA request to date, but the watchdog has required numerous documents from DHS grant recipients and other related organizations. TVTP was very much on the radar of DHS leadership. Indeed, Mayorkas called the program a high priority in a document obtained by the MRC. The Secretary Mayorkas thanked the grantees for their work, and he reassured all in attendance that this program is a priority for the department and that the work being done is of the highest importance. The Maryland Department of Energy Management wrote in its notes and documentation of the 2022 TVTP Grantee Symposium, which Mayorkas hosted. The MRC report comes amid calls for Mayorkas to resign due to his handling of the ongoing crisis of the country's southern border, I should say lack of handling. Several Republican lawmakers have pushed the idea of impeaching him for allegedly neglecting his duties. I know they have to put allegedly in there, so as not to get sued or something for defamation or whatever it is, libel, slander, whichever one's the right one. But I think it's pretty safe to say you could take allegedly out because he is just not doing anything. The report also comes amid outcry over the findings of Special Counsel John Durham, who had been investigating the FBI's original Trump-Russia probe, another instance of critics accusing a federal agency of mobilizing against a political opponent. On the heels of the Durham report, we now have evidence that the Biden administration is ratcheting up its anti-American targeting of Christians, conservatives, and Republicans. This is abhorrent and criminal, said MRC Free Speech America Vice President Dan Schneider. We call on federal prosecutors to hold violators accountable under our civil rights laws, 18 U.S.C. Section 241 and 18 U.S.C. Section 242 accountable. Last week, so it's from May 25th, which is the date on this article. It says Special Counsel John Durham released a final report on his investigation into the original probe concerning whether former President Donald Trump and his campaign colluded with Russia to influence the 2016 presidential election. Durham found that there was never any information to justify opening the FBI's investigation and that the Bureau and the Department of Justice failed to uphold their mission of strict fidelity to the law. All right, we're almost there. Says the MRC argued in its report that TVTP grants are just the latest example of the Biden administration using taxpayer dollars to attack political opponents, citing DHS's now defunct and much maligned Disinformation Governance Board and the FBI reportedly targeting parents with anti-terrorism tools. To conclude its report, the Media Research Center noted it obtained documents for several other TVTP grantees allegedly showing DHS funding efforts to target and demonize political opponents of the Biden administration. And it says TARG. It's a target, so heads up, Fox. This report only scratches the surface of the Biden DHS's nefarious TVTP grant program. The document states, MRC Free Speech America has obtained more documents from other DHS grantees and other organizations through our concentrated FOIA initiative, and will be presenting further evidence of the Biden administration's efforts to target conservatives, Christians, and the Republican Party going forward. That is finally the end of the article. Sorry to show a fat belly under there. I was scrolling down one of those ads. But what does everybody out there think about this? I mean, how do you like the federal government being weaponized against you if you happen to be a wrong thinker or someone on the right? Like, let's just go to this chart because it's bigger than the other one. Like, if you happen to, oh, look, I'm making an article or a video about Fox News, and oh, look, they're on here, and I've watched things from the Heritage Foundation, like an amount of things you count on like one finger. I would consider, or one hand, one finger, because that would just be one. Here's the Republican thing, like, I'm a Republican, okay, like, I've watched PragerU stuff. I would consider myself MAGA. I've watched Turning Point stuff. I support the police, Blue Lives Matter. Breitbart I go to, but I've never seen anything from any of these that I would even consider to be like anti-something. In fact, they're very, very much all the things that these organizations say that they're not. So, yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think about this? This is just mind-boggling to me. So let me know in the comments below what you think. This is already long enough, so like, share, subscribe, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.